All right, folks.
Hi, guys.
We're here. A few minutes late, but Teresa braved and sprinted her way back from San Ysidro. This is just a whole different world here. The roads are different.
I'm learning how to drive
Time
stick
is
shift,
different.
so
People are different.
getting back.
And she's getting really good at that manual.
I have gotten much better. It just goes to show you, or me, in this case, that like sometimes when you think you can't do something, you always can if you put your power into it.
Yeah.
So it sounds like a small thing, but it's kind of, it's amazing to learn something like this. So anyway, apologies. I got back here as fast as I could. I'm kind of a maniac on the road.
Teresa's had a ticket or two in her day, if I may say.
I learned from the best.
That's right.
Her
dad, her dad.
Anyway, fun topic today.
This is going to be fun. This is going to be really fun. We're calling this busting through the validation matrix, or but what will they think of me if I fill in the blank?
And we called this series sort of like the big obstacles to making the change, I think, something to that effect.
Yeah.
To going for it, to following your passion, to doing you, to all of that. And this one was the relationship originally, but we wanted to make it clear that we're talking about all of your relationships, not just the romantic relationship, though that may be one of them. Usually the loudest voices in your head are parental, or they originated as parental, and sometimes I know I have recreated my parents in my life in the form of bosses and boyfriends and other friends and things like that, other relationships based on the voices that I originally listened to as a child that become a chorus, kind of stopping me from being my true self.
And that's by design, okay? So
yeah,
that's not like some huge mistake. That's not like a problem. That's actually what's supposed to happen. These are supposed to come back, and so we can clear them, so we can move through them, we can transcend, we can move past them. That's all by design. That's why they're there. They're not there because we made a mistake or life is cruel or I'm a victim. No, like it's been recreated so that I can transcend this, evolving myself and evolving the human race forward. That's the whole idea. So these are supposed to come back. They're supposed to appear, and we're supposed to get through them.
And as we said in other calls, other live streams, that like these recreations can become, when you start to see them as your own creation, they are a perfect mirror for your own growth. So when you used to, what used to be or might have been, this always keeps happening to me, can become, this I keep recreating this. That's why this always keeps happening, and why it looks exactly the same, because it is my mirror.
Yeah.
So it's teaching me how to move forward powerfully beyond this, basically.
So big hi to Vera and Lisa and Bart.
Yay! Welcome.
Great to see you guys here, and thanks for bearing with us. So in our experience, personally, working with others, and just knowing the stories of hundreds of other people who have made big shifts and gone for it and taken the leap, the fabric of the walls that contain us is woven through with the need for validation and approval by others. That's really it. Like, what is it that stops you from taking the job? Well, or from leaving the job that doesn't serve you anymore. Maybe it's financial insecurity. I would concede that, but a lot of times it's also, what will my father say? What will my mother say? What will my partner say? What will my kids say? What will my friends say?
What will my
brother say? My boss will freak out. What are they going to do without me? Like, you outsource that to somebody else, that validation. And so what we do is we by outsourcing that, we never really come into real harmony with who we are. And so this is like if the prison is made of iron, which I guess they are, like this is the iron bars, like this is the iron, need for validation. And so these relationships, we can talk a little bit specifically about some of our relationships that have shown us these things that we have then transcended and moved through, but they will appear. So that's number one. Expect that. If you're going to kind of change everything or change big things or make big shifts in your life, like these appearances are going to be seen. They will come in the form of a parent or a partner or a child or an aunt or an uncle or a sibling or a friend. It's going to come. And And so what we have to do is learn how to deal with that, because so right now what most people do is they don't shine, they don't step forward, they don't speak their truth, they don't boldly claim the life that is really your birthright. They don't do that to sort of kind of create this padded wall around you of like, well, these people like me, right? Yeah. And in fact, those people don't really like the real you, because you are hidden. You are kind of keeping a big, big secret. And by keeping that big secret, most relationships reflect that and are kind of shallow and inauthentic and not really rewarding and fulfilling. If anything, like, I used to have lots of friends. I had a wide canvas of friends, and now I have a small group of trusted kind of fellow soldiers, if you will. And then a lot of people who are kind of on the periphery of that. I think they're probably scratching their heads like, what's really going on over there with Stephen?
Who is this Stephen?
And so these things will come and they'll have to be dealt with. But what we can do is look at them from the standpoint of, I created this. This is not someone being hostile to me or someone disapproving of me. In fact, what's being shown to me is perhaps the momentum or the pattern that I have lived by, where I've outsourced this validation, and now I get to take that power back. This is super fun, okay? This is really, really rich and rewarding. So the alternative is to never shine, to never speak out, to never really boldly step forward, and to kind of accept average. That's the alternative. That's literally the only other alternative. The other, to step through that, is to embrace adventure, the unknown, and things that are hitherto probably not even known are possible, than to step through this need for validation. And so the reason we outsource all of this approval seeking, the reason we create that pattern, is because we have forgotten what we really are. We have forgotten that each of us, me, I'll speak for me, I am source. Like the energy that is me, this consciousness that is so alive, that is receiving these impressions of life, is source itself. And if I forget that, if I fall asleep to that and think I'm some sort of person that's got to make do and get by and be secure and take care of myself and have, duke it out in the world, then I'm going to quite naturally outsource, offshore my well-being, my truth. I'm going to do that as a natural consequence of falling asleep to my own sourcefulness.
Yeah, I mean, this conditioning begins from the second you're born, maybe before. And I think so all of us have it. Like, I used to think I was like so alone and defective, and like, why don't I know who I am, and why do I live my life for others? But like, to some extent, so this is the way it happens, right? We're children, and unless we have very, very conscious parents who have cleared all of their own triggers and all of their own needs, putting their identity in their children, like, unless you really have like completely, grow up in consciousness and embracing of your unfolding true nature and everything you have to bring, there will be some version of this, because we're children. We look up to our parents. We depend on our parents for our very survival, and we're told so many things as we're depending for our survival, our messages about who we are, right? So there's so many of these internalized, and as a teacher of ours says, it goes to everything, to the expressions you have, the expressions you give. You're so shape-shifting you take this primal survival instinct when you're a child to need your parents' validation for survival, when you're a child, that's how the human existence is. We depend on our parents for survival, right? So we take that and then we explode it beyond what it was originally intended to do. And we take those ways that we got validated and we pin them on to everybody else, and then it becomes, even as we're adults, like we need other people's validation to feel safe and to feel okay. And we do it over and over and over and over again, to the point that sometimes our whole identity and who we structured has been this person trying to, like Stephen said, stay in the safe box, right? Like bounce off of people and make sure that we're going to be okay. We're going to be okay. And for me, I did this for years. Oh my God. I mean, I couldn't attract an authentic relationship because I was just shape-shifting to try to be what I thought another person wanted. You never have an authentic relationship with any person if you're not your true self. That's the amazing thing, is that, we try to hold on to these relationships because we depended on them for our own value and our own worth, but they're not real relationships because they're not with our true self anyway, in many cases. Or it's a hybrid, there are parts of me that were revealed, but not the full me. And I did this in jobs with bosses. I turned every boss into my father, every mentor, I'm going to disappoint them, and that overwhelm of that the disappointment that I perceived that a boss would have for me, you know, like, and also just feeling like, oh, I was so indispensable, they could not get on without me. And I can't even tell you how many times I left a job and they were just fine, but I had held back from my own joy for so long at the weight of thinking of what someone else would think. And so the question is, like, how much longer will you live for others? Like, we live for others often our entire lives, and it just squashes us. I can't even tell you how many of my friends, and I had this experience myself too in my 30s, basically, like, got through the whole like path we were told to take, pleasing others. You know, that we worked so hard, we got through school with great grades, we got to college, and a lot of us into grad school, we got these good jobs and promotions, and people were praising us, and blah, blah. And we're like, why the fuck am I so miserable? Why don't I feel expressed? Why don't I know who I am? Well, it's like, if you're always trying to get validation from others, you're not your true self. And your true self will just wants to explode out. And so what is that worth? What is that worth? Is that worth our lives? Is that worth sacrificing our great service to the world? Is it worth not even experiencing authentic relationship with another person because you're not your true self?
Yeah, for me it was older men, father figures, like just over and 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 over again. My parents divorced when I was very young. My dad's a great guy. I had a great stepdad who had his own, everybody has their own things, but at that very young age, when the relationship broke, something shifted in me, something occurred, and a kind of gap was created that I continued to search for, kind of, you know, casting all these older men in the role of a father. And one in particular, God bless him, he, for about 10 years, really, really helped me in various ways. We were very good friends and part of a community together. He was really, really of service to me, but I turned him into like a father figure. And so what happened for me was, and this is sort of, I think, like the first meaningful step, is one, to kind of acknowledge, like, okay, something's off here about how I deal with other people, my relationships. Like, this is, I feel unexpressed, I'm not happy. I seem to have this voice that wants to emerge that I'm not allowing to emerge. I've shut it down. So that's step one, like, acknowledge that. And then two, kind of see it as in terms of like, okay, I'm seeking validation. Like, I need people's approval. I'm terrified to speak my truth because, oh my God, what will they say? What will they think of me, right? This is the refrain. And so what has happened for me is, as I have tuned in more and more and more and more into my calling, and really feel that excitement, that joy, that meaning, that riveting adventure that really is. By feeling into that and just allowing myself to just sit in that space of just riveting excitement, that word keeps coming back to me, because whenever I'm really tuned into that, I can't take my eyes off it. It feels so good. It's so joyous. I mean, I'm really connected to source, and I'm literally experiencing the energy of that pure energy of flow and sourcefulness and God, and like my reason for being here. Like, I'm in that space. And as I tune into that more and more and more, something begins to happen, which is the value that I place on other people begins to wane, because I can see that, like, this joy, like, it feels so good. It's so natural to be in that space. It's so natural to feel that way that I become unwilling to compromise that. So there's actually no kind of big dramatic, like, okay, never again am I going to do this. Like, it's actually just more like feeling into that space and, like, really, like, it will do the rest for you. Just feeling into that and allowing it to just be who I am. Like, just feel it. Just let it kind of let it take over the field of energy that you have appeared as. And it will begin to reorganize things for me. And so it feels so good. It feels so joyful. It feels so meaningful. And then what happens is I begin to kind of live from this space, and I begin to speak my truth, maybe, or live my truth, and make big decisions. Like, that's something that really, really can trigger people. It's like, let's say you quit your job, or you move. You, like in our case, we moved into a van. Our family thought we were crazy.
With a baby.
They were
with
sort
our
of
new
fascinated,
baby.
but they thought we were nuts. Like, we heard later on that there were, like, text message threads like, oh my God, Stephen and Teresa are out of their minds, and all that sort of thing. So, like, that's going to come. But but you tune into that space. You really, really allow it to have the gravity that it brings. It begins to do so much for you. So it's really sort of about like the first part of our process. One of the big first early stages of our process of exiting the matrix is to tune into that calling and understand what that truly is. And then to boldly step out and begin to express that. And in our case, like, relationships kind of, in some cases, just sort of naturally fade away. Like people will just kind of naturally just fade out. And 6 months, a year later, be like, well, whatever happened to so-and-so? Like you won't even run into them. Like you won't even enter into their mind. Like this happened for us where we were part of a community in Southern California for some time. Then we started to really tune into this journey, this process, and really felt really alive and buoyed by this, excited by this. We went off on our van trip, and had this amazing experience. We did all this other stuff. We went to Sedona a bunch. We went to Costa Rica back in the wintertime. And then like April through July, we were in Southern California. We never ran into any of these people. And this is actually
we used to run into them all the time.
Every day.
Yeah.
We never ran into anyone. So it's just like some energetic transformation takes place. And many people kind of on the margins or in the periphery, they're just going to fall away. They're just going to fall away. You won't even do anything. There's nothing to do, right? The other layer, if you will, this is the part that's always interesting to me, is like, you're going to be surprised. Like right now, pre-making this jump or this shift, like I used to think like these three people they're going to have a little problem with this.
Yeah.
And they didn't have a problem with it. It was somebody else or some other pocket of my life that sort of surfaced and objected to whatever was happening. Like, it will be surprising. There will be some surprises. And that's cool. Like, and we've dealt with it. It's fun actually to deal with this, because the reason they're coming up is twofold. Like, you can now transform this attachment from your past, but now you get to serve them because they're triggered. And the reason they're triggered is because some part of them wants to be seen by them, and you get to present that. You get to be the mirror for these people and help them expand. So there's ways to do that, which are really, really exciting and fun.
Yeah, if you want to, you're gonna keep going.
Well, I'll
go.
You say what you're going to say, but then there's the final sort of type of person that appears always.
I was just going to say that it's once, and maybe this is related to what you're saying, but it's once again a great reminder that you create your reality, because people pop up to show you your own lack beliefs still. It's not like it's a test from the universe. Like I refer to it as a video game a lot. Like, are you going to bust through this demon? Because it's like you're on a flow, you're on a path, you're on like a beam of light going forward, and you have to kind of get past these people. And I love what you said about the calling being essential, because that's really what tipped me over in the end. I felt like off for a lot of years. I didn't have my own direction. I was like, this isn't right, but what is right? Because I was so lost to myself through validation for others. I didn't even know. And I was also used to feeling so mediocre in my life. And I remember, like, I had a coach once be like, can't have a relationship with anyone else until you have a relationship with yourself. And I was like, oh, right. But it's so true, because like a relationship with yourself is what Stephen was talking about. It's like knowing yourself, your power, your creative force, your joy, and energy as source. And the confidence in building that relationship with yourself is like knowing what force you have. And you don't need the validation of other people then. We only need the validation of others because we perceive ourselves as weak or small or less than or not enough. And that goes all the way back. And we keep recreating it. And if you seek validation in others, we don't feel inherently valid in ourselves. We are inherently valid. We are inherently perfect. So if you don't know that, and you get in touch with that. For me, I just felt so confused for so long, as I was so used to seeking it outside of myself, validation, to knowing I was enough, to knowing I was valid by looking to people outside of me. And it wasn't until once I connected with my calling, it's like, it just busted through. It's like, oh, I have this purpose. It's so true. It's so real. You could just feel it. And it was so important. It was like the meaning of my life, And so therefore, like when that happens, it busts through your need for validation from others. It renders it meaningless. And the other thing I wanted to say about that, I'll hand it back to you, is that like you also will be surprised that sometimes those relationships you're holding on to, like you can have so much more. Like those relationships that have fallen off in my life, be it friends or coworkers or romantic partners, whatever, like family even, they just were irrelevant. They were irrelevant. They became irrelevant as I changed, as I stepped into my own power, as I stepped into who I was. Of course, the people around me changed. There's that saying about like the 5 people closest to you, or like an amalgamation of who you are. You are the amalgamation of the 5 people closest to you, or something, right? So, and it's true. And it's the people will, as you step into yourself, as you step into your power and your calling, the people will just become irrelevant, and you will become surrounded by people who more reflect that, who feel more resonant, and you're like, oh, these are the connections that I wanted all the time. This is connected to who I really am. I don't feel false around these people, and I find now I'm really choosy about the kind of connections people. I used to like Steven said, I had like so many friends. I'd show up at every birthday party. I was just like exhausting myself to feel good enough about myself by showing up for other people. Same thing with overworking, Gotta like maintain all these relationships. I gotta juggle all these relationships. And the truth is that you feel strong in yourself and you develop this calling when you hone that. You don't need to do that stuff anymore. So you only surround yourself with people who feel good, who bring you joy, and who strengthen your knowing of yourself.
Yeah, usually when you think of this question of really kind of stepping out as who you really are, like saying something that you always wanted to say, that you know is true, that you won't say it up until that point. Usually there's 1, maybe 2 people, relationships that come right up like, ooh, what is so-and-so going to think of this? What are they going to say to me? What will be their reaction? And usually, you're right. Usually those first ones that come to mind are pretty accurate. In my case, that's been the truth. There are people that surprised me. There are people that just sort of fell away and like that I just don't even see them anymore, that have been replaced, as Teresa said beautifully, by this tribe that really, really corresponds to this flow energy and this true state of who I am. But there will be 1 or 2 that have to be dealt with. Oftentimes, like in a conversation or in a note or in some sort of very direct way. And it doesn't have to be angry or a fight or anything like that or a conflict, but that typically has to take place. And the thing to remember is that if you're aligned, if I'm aligned and I'm coming from that place, even imperfectly, you don't have to kind of like nail it with this. But even if you're doing that imperfectly, the highest good will transpire for everyone. Even these people who might have serious resistance to what it is that you're doing. Like what's happening for them is something's being generated for their experience. It's absolutely imperative for their own expansion and growth that you are facilitating and catalyzing. But those types of things are coming. And so it's really, really important that we understand what this really means. So it's not about just sort of like, getting louder in life. That's not it. Like, I've tried that before. Like, I'm just going to say something even stronger next time. But it's really about kind of coming from a true place, of really being aligned, in touch with this passion of who you really are, and feeling that flow and coming from that. It will reach people the way it's supposed to reach people. That is actually the universe expanding itself through you. And sometimes when that happens, it lands on people, it fires their triggers, and then they will then respond in kind. But this is now a beautiful opportunity to serve and help them, while not kind of retreating your position. And there are ways to do that, and there are ways that we've done that, had to do that. And actually, if you're really coming from that aligned place, like the way through it will just appear, and you'll be amazed at how graceful it can be. But that does happen too. Sometimes people are lurking out there to show you your own shadow, to really, really kind of cough up the kernel of that validation that you've outsourced for so many years. And so this is now the opportunity to kind of really come from a place of, I'm creating this. This is exciting. Maybe this is like me fully transcending this pattern that has held me down for so many years. So it's really about kind of making a decision. I'm going to live according to my calling, and whatever that kind of compels me to do, I'm going to do it. we do it intelligently, like we talked about the other day, about like not overstressing the system and quitting our job tomorrow and then suddenly finding myself like having to find another job. That's more of a lateral move. But really kind of get aligned to that calling and release that energy into my field. And suddenly I'm now vibrating in a very different way. People have their responses to that, but it becomes like your source. Like you are now source. You're living from that place. And when you're there, it's so obvious that that's the truth. And it's so obvious, like you will never, ever compromise that. You will not do it because it is so natural to feel that way, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, and if you do, it will start to feel really bad. Like we've been used to just feeling bad or misaligned. You know, a lot of us just are used to feeling that way. We just think that's what life feels like. When you get in touch with the energy of your calling, when you get in touch with an authentic relationship with yourself as source, as the creator, when you get in touch with that truth about yourself, then if you get in a situation, like it happens to me in very small ways now, like if I'm in a conversation with somebody at a restaurant and I'm like, oh, I could have stepped forward in this way, or like, oh, I didn't really, or in certain relationships in my life, like if I'm not telling my whole truth, like, oh, like I really see it right away, and that's not my usual state anymore. I'm not used to feeling false or bad or like off. Like I'm used to feeling in touch with my calling. I'm used to being excited about putting that into the world, and so it shifts your state entirely when you start living from who you are rather than living for others. And that's such a huge point. You know, I remember I had these big demons in my life, these big fears, and there are all these categories that people are talking about. The people who actually didn't care, there were people who were inspired, there were people who were upset about things. You have to remember that like those people are creating their reality too, right? So like they're creating you. As Stephen said, you may be a catalyst for someone, but the most important thing is you don't hold back your truth. You know, I've had people say to me, different friends and mentors, that like when you are withholding your true self, you know, in this case, your calling, your true expression, you know, you're withholding a relationship with anyone. You know, you can't have any kind of authentic relationship. So the people, like I used to say, oh, I had this one boss, I don't want to quit because, oh, we were such close friends. And his friend said to me, like, if she really loves you, she's going to be really excited about this, you know? And if not, like, then it's okay. Again, like, how much is it worth to give your life to someone else, one other someone else, or a string of someone else's? It's not. It's depriving the world of what you have to give. So, and you know, like, and again, like, if you're worried about relationships or want to have authentic relationships, like that only comes when you're living from your truth.
Yeah, and in many cases, like the people who will be most triggered are actually triggered because they're meant to transcend this too. Actually walk this path with you. Like you're meant to inspire them, and then they're going to freak out. Then they get over it, and then suddenly you're even closer than you were before. So it's really important that we don't sit in this position of forecasting like, oh, I'm going to have to quit my job. You might, but you know, or my boss is going to be furious with me, or my partner, my romantic partner is going to leave me, or I'm going to have to leave them. Like none of that's known. We don't know. Like who knows? Like the boss may be overjoyed. The partner may be like, oh, geez, I feel the same way. I've never said anything because I've been terrified I would lose you. You know, we just don't know. So it's really about kind of being aligned with this energy and not kind of jumping to any sort of conclusions, just being okay with not knowing how any of this is going to necessarily play out, but know, like, and this is, you can hang your hat on this, is that the highest good will transpire for you and everybody else. Whatever that is, whatever that needs to be, that's what's going to happen, because you're introducing an energy of a higher level into the field of your life, and that will kind of that will influence others in the exact same way that it does you in a very, very positive way.
It's such a good point that those projections, those illusions, those fear bubbles, those like, you know, those nightmares of what people are going to think about are like total projections of an unaligned state. You know, we only seek validation because we are unaligned. You know, so when you get in that space of the calling, again, like the closer and closer, the more aligned you get with that, just know what to do in those situations. You will know what to do. You will know what to do with each situation. You will be directed, you know, and it will feel right. So again, they're just total projections of fear limitation and misalignment. And so, like, again, it all comes back to getting in touch with who you are so you can be guided through life in that strong way through your calling.
And the sacrifice to not do that.
So huge.
So I have a relative who will remain nameless, somebody distant, but who had a very clear calling that they subsumed for the approval of their parents for decades.
Mm.
The amount of anger, the amount of sideways expression, the amount of kind of collapsing in on themselves that has taken place in 50, 60 years is blatant. And this great light, this great sensitivity, this beautiful gift that has been still given in a very kind of contorted way. The being through which this gift was to be given has been so mired in anger and rage, toxicity, disease. At this certain stage of life, disease is now setting in. So the compromise is tremendous. What is sacrificed for that is tremendous. And so I want to leave you with this, which is that if you continue to outsource, this is what happens, kind of a spiral devolution, right? It will not get better. And it will certainly not get better by trying to rearrange the appearance. Like, I'm going to just get somebody else over there. I want to get another job. Or
It'll be exactly
go
the same.
to like read 4 more books or whatever. Mm-hmm. Just all postponement, all postponement, all postponement. It is not going to change. It is not going to change. And really all that's going to happen is more stress, more tension, bringing you back to this place of being at this threshold of like, I can't do this anymore. I have to step forward and really speak out, like just claim who I really am and let all these demons be gone. Now, if you do that, this is what happens. There's an evolutionary expansive process that occurs. It's really, really simple. And so it's like the busting through the validation matrix is really about knowing that you are source. You're the source of your own validation. You're validated. We're all validated. We're all
you are valid.
Our existence is the worthiness right
Inherently.
there. The imprint has already been made. There's nothing to do, nothing to say, nothing to prove. But we're convinced that there is, due to programming and due to really a society that is just is all about outsourcing that. But if you can get with this calling, the calling is the theme that connects me to source, the theme that is my sourcefulness itself. From that place, I need nothing from anybody. I need nothing from anybody. And the joy, the peace, the satisfaction, the excitement, all these words are coming to mind. It's indescribable. That's the whole reason we're doing this course, because we want people to experience that. Like, our calling is to literally have you experience this. And that's exactly why we're doing this. And we know it's going to be so extraordinary for those who participate, because we're so aligned. Everything that's coming out of us these days feels incredibly true. And the people already kind of gathering around this campfire, so to speak, are so clearly here for a very, very big time reason for themselves. And it's just about kind of knowing, like not thinking it, not kind of reading it in a book, but like, no, I am source. I need nothing. And when you really feel that and live in that space, things happen fast. The coincidences, the conspiracy of evolution and excitement and joy is so apparent, so blatantly obvious. And what you really desire, which oftentimes people don't know until they really sort of sit with this for some time, what you really desire definitely is guaranteed. Absolutely. Now, figuring out what that is, not figuring it out, but being kind of led to understanding what that is, might be a bit of a journey. Like, who knows? But you will get what you want. I had a spiritual teacher tell me once, like, if you know what you want, you'll get what you want. But do you know what you want? And I said, yeah, I want $1 million or something, something super like material like that. And he'd say, that's not what you want.
That was one of the big ahas for me, and maybe I know we need to wrap it up, is that you are getting what you want. Like, I remember I was so miserable in my job for a long time and in the way my life looked, and I had a spiritual teacher say, like, you have what you want. You are preferring the validation of others to that calling. Like that is what I was doing. Like I was preferring seeing more benefit in and choosing the validation of other people's dreams, other people's opinions, my perception. It's even as further removed, my perception of other people's opinions and what they meant about me over my true calling and joy in life. You know, when you step forward into that, that's what gets created. You know, so it's all your creation, you know, and recreating the same relationship over and over again, or the same job, is you creating for your shouting at yourself. Change, step forward, do this. You don't have to do the same thing over and over again. You can change, and then like Stephen said, change on the inside, and the outer just manifests naturally.
Yeah, it's very exciting. Really, really exciting. This is so key. This is absolutely imperative to understand what's at stake and to take back this power that we give away to other people, things, jobs, bosses, relationships, you name it. Like, we outsource that. To take that back is imperative. It's imperative. So that I can then more and more step forward as I truly am, offer the service that's really me, share what really needs to be shared, really kind of allow my wisdom to kind of come through. It's critical. It's critical. Hi, Alicia. Just seeing your comment. Hi, Grace. Vera, thanks for hanging with us. So the application the application is open, of course. We've had a few people already kind of in, and Wednesday the 10th. What is today? The 7th, 8th, 9th?
Yeah, Wednesday the 10th. Anytime around the world.
If it's the 10th where you are, the application is open, but it will be closed on the 11th, and then we're going to be hitting the pedal to the metal, so to speak. So get your applications in. We have a number of surprises beginning to line up out there. Some extra cool stuff that's going to be kind of coming into this, which we're super excited for. If you have any questions, feel free to PM us or email us, Stephen or Teresa at ownstream.co. I'm going to create a little poll after this just to sort of gauge like what people think the big one is for themselves, whether it's a partner or boss or a friend or a brother or sister, whatever it may be. It'd be interesting to sort of see where people feel like they're big, where they've placed the most need for approval and validation out there.
Power outside themselves. Yeah, that's we've been looking to address those in these videos, but we know that it may be something else. We want to address anything that is holding anyone back, because we all have our own story about that feels so real, holding us back from who we really are. It's a very conditioned story. So I look forward to people's responses to that.
It's totally optional too. I mean,
it's totally optional.
What you think, like what we're really hiding from, is oftentimes a few minute conversation with somebody, like, and that can hold a person in position for decades. Makes me want to cry. Honest to God, it's like, that is so not needed. Like, you don't have to live like that.
And on the macro level, it is like manifesting in the disease and crumbling and pain happening on the planet. So another huge reason that we are called to do this is this individual expression. It's the collective. You know, the more people who step into who they are and what they were meant to bring this world, the more the world is changing. The more love, more light is being brought, the world can be turned. And that's real. That's happening right now.
And you've been inspired by somebody in your life, as have I, as have Teresa. Like, we've been inspired by people. So if you've been inspired by somebody, you now have the opportunity to become that person for another, for the people coming in behind you, the people who are so hungry for inspiration, that urgently need you to speak up, to live out loud, to really change your life, to align and go for it and jump in and show somebody else what's really possible. Like that's a big part of this. It's about you. Yeah, it's going to be an amazing adventure. But think of all the people behind you who are like, hey, look at Stephen and Teresa. Oh my God, we can do this. We can do this too. Like, if you're under the delusion that the way the world is set up right now works, you're not qualified for this program by any means. Like that's like this is really about stepping up as who we are, but serving those coming behind us too, because they're coming coming. And we need people to sort of jump in and go for it. Trust, really have a living faith that we're supported, that we're loved, that everything's possible, that I'm meant to follow this excitement, this joy. Like, that's what this is about.
And if you're drawn to this, you're meant to do this.
Yeah, totally. Yeah,
So.
There's no mistakes. Not like people sort of land in this video, this conversation, or kind of drawn to this for anything other than very, very, very strong reasons. Very, very powerful meaning to that. And we encourage you to honor it. So.
Yes, you too, Vera. Yes. So that's it, I think.
I think so. Yeah, we'll throw that poll up and share below that in the comments here more about kind of how you receive this conversation, where you think you've placed the most well-being outside of yourself, what relationships, what parts of the appearance hold a lot of gravity for you that you can now take back. Think about that power, retake it, and allowed to shine and serve others. Like, it's huge. It's huge. So anyway, we'll do that, and we'll be back tomorrow, 1-ish.
Tomorrow will probably be closer to 1.
I think we should be on time tomorrow. I mean, we
not
don't
as
know
many packed outside of this town kind of events. Looks like we're being logged off. You just never know what's going to happen with this Costa Rican internet. But if we're still on, we'll see you tomorrow. 1-ish.
Thanks, everybody. With the pina.
Bye.
Bye.
Mr.